I'm Ellen Bernhard, Instagram for punkschoolarsnetwork.us if you're interested. We are going to go on a field trip to Pennsylvania, and we're going to start in Philadelphia, home of gritty Philadelphia cheesesteaks, and your soon-to-be 2024 Super Bowl champions, the Philadelphia Eagles. We're going to head north in our car to NEPA, where you will find, and if you are familiar with Joe Biden, the US version of The Office, and Mr. Peanut. And if you are familiar with any of those things, you are also familiar with NEPA. And so NEPA is a shorthand term for what locals and like people in this part of, the Eastern Pennsylvania call Northeast Pennsylvania. And so NEPA stands for Northeast Pennsylvania. It also stands for nostalgia, existentialism, place, and age. So we are going to be looking at what I'm calling the NEPA Effect with the Menzingers. So who are the Menzingers? They are... Okay, so all of these concepts that I just talked about come up in the Menzingers' music. And so who are they? Jeff Yerger for Treble Zine wrote, if you're 30-something from Scranton or Philadelphia, chances are you know someone who has a connection to one of the dudes from the Menzingers. They're a hometown band made up of homebodies whose songs relish those fleeting moments of getting fucked up with your high school buddies or driving nowhere to nowhere on roads of Eastern Pennsylvania, or both at the same time. So they were formed in Scranton, Pennsylvania in 2006, and they released their first album in 2007. And in 2011, they signed with Epitaph, which we all know is Brett Gurewitz, wrong Bad Religion member. Brett Gurewitz's record label. So back in the day, you could see them play some hometown fire halls, college student unions, opening for bands like the Bouncing Souls. But today they headline their own tours. They sell out tours all over the world, wrapping up a tour now in the US, and they will be doing a UK Europe tour in January. So our first theme is nostalgia. And so I really like this quote, that integral to the nostalgic experience is the realization that there is no going back. And so the four themes play off one another in their music. Nostalgia, I think, is a really important one, and possibly lessens the blow of the other three. While, nostalgia might not be necessarily universal, it's an effective device, according to Masterson, in lessening the threat of existentialism and mortality. And so providing a reliable self-identity to cling to in times of turmoil. And so in their music, I'm looking at music videos, I'm looking at lyrics to kind of make sense of my NEPA effect here. And this is a song called Bad Catholics. The whole music video is this sort of nostalgic church picnic scenario where, everybody's eating, they're playing cards, and it's very reminiscent of something that you would see take place in Northeast Pennsylvania. A bunch of kids come in, there's a food fight and all of that. But the line here, bad Catholics weren't we darling, kind of evokes this sense of nostalgia. Moving on into some of their other lyrics and some of their music videos, we have the song called Wings, Your Wild Years. And it's a whole story about how the singer of the band goes up with his significant other to Massachusetts, and they're looking through stuff, and they see these boxes labeled former you, with the talk of wild years, talk of, nostalgia of going back to those wild years is really a huge theme within a lot of their music. The song I Don't Want to Be an Asshole Anymore also plays up on this idea of nostalgia, because if you look at the shot that I took from the music video, that we're looking at an 80s pop culture reference, right? We've got Say Anything and Friday the 13th being parodied in this music video, which is something that I think is really interesting, because one of the things that I see a lot of in my own research and what I want to pursue further is this idea of nostalgia in like 30-year increments. So Metzger has this idea of what he calls a nostalgia pendulum. So things come back into popularity or into reference in these 30-year cycles. So think about fashion, right? 90s, 2000 era fashion is really coming back right now. Moving on, we have a song off of their new album called Some of It Was True. And literally in the first line, nostalgia's never quite as it seems, right? Rose-colored glasses, playing pretend, thinking that everything was better back then. So we see progression through these albums, through the music, this idea of nostalgia. I'm kind of, thinking about the past. A lot of their album titles also evoke some kind of sense of nostalgia. We have This Is Some of It Was True. They have an album called On the Impossible Past, After the Party, right? This idea that there's some sort of longing for a past, and perhaps, remembering it in different ways. Moving on, we have existentialism. Existentialism, and I love this quote here, says that punk refuses to take you on a journey. And the quote from Hanscom says that in other rock genres, notably psychedelic, prog rock, heavy metal, and goth, there's a strong element of escapism. Punk musicians are meant to live in a way that reflects their artistic outputs, and this allows for a form of life. It is possible for a punk fan to inhibit without losing themselves to fantasy or illusion. Right. So there's no sense of, making something up. It is what it is when we're talking about existentialism in punk. And their song "Hope Is a Dangerous Little Thing." Again, the title itself evokes this very sort of existential thought about existence. And the first line is, hope is a dangerous thing. And then, they sing about this dollar store that has a burned out A, and the restaurant that burned to the ground. So sort of very real kind of storytelling. Not this sort of like, we're going on a journey and here's what's happening. This is it. And then I'm the junk you buy that throw away. On their album, Rented World, we have Bad Things. Again, right? When I swore life had a purpose, when I was sure the whole thing's worth it. And he's singing about the rodent in the wall, that they both have things in common. And so the line here that so burn the fucker down, I don't care anymore, again, doesn't tell us more than what we've got here, right? Just sort of straightforward, like this is exactly what we're doing. And then our last example of existentialism is in a song called Mexican Guitars. And this line gets stuck in my head often. But it's in everything that I do now is meaningless. So I'm off to wander around the world for a little bit. So again, right, none of this is really kind of giving us much hope. But I think it's very relatable, which is sort of what my kind of argument is. So moving on to place as our third kind of characteristic of Menzingers' songs. And this is Nowotny et al. Said, we engage in a reflexive relationship with the places we occupy. And of the four that I looked at, I think place is the most interesting because the Menzingers do a lot of what Bruce Springsteen does. And I know there's some Bruce Springsteen fans in the room because we talked about it this morning. There are some of you, maybe not, but either way, the Menzingers do a lot with place in terms of specific places, locations, references to things that are maybe subtle or not so subtle. And all within, a lot of them are places within the New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Philadelphia area. So in their song Gates, they're talking about the Pawpack Cliffs, which are up in the Poconos. And their song Ava House is a direct reference to a venue in Philadelphia that they used to kind of, hang out in. It's actually right above the garage. The score windows up there, according to my Google search, is what Ava House was. I don't think it exists anymore as they sing about it in this song. We have more examples of place. These are two more. To go back to Bruce Springsteen, we have the Stone Pony in Asbury Park. So they do sing about the Stone Pony in the song Your Wild Years. So another song very full of nostalgia, very kind of longing for a specific place. And they reference the Walt Whitman Bridge in Philly. And here we have, as far as I know, doing my searches on Google Maps, is the Turkey Hill in Maine in West Side in Scranton. So this is the only one I could find. So I'm assuming that this is it. But they were, in this song Bad Catholics, singing about driving around to the Scranton area, getting stoned, drinking, smoking cigarettes, and then they pillaged the Turkey Hill on Main Avenue West Side. And so one of the things that I think is really important to kind of consider when we talk about place is the idea that music can become an actual representation of that place. Cohen, who did research with Jewish immigrant communities and their ties to music and place, really kind of thought about the ways that we have this sort of symbolic notion of these locations, and that is what the Menzingers are doing in their songs. There's lots of nostalgia in these places, lots of memories, even just these two examples here of past events that took place. And so they are, according to Cohen, right, socially produced as practical settings for contexts for social activity. And then they exist as those conceptual and symbolic kind of elements as well. Just a couple more examples here. We have this shot is from their song I Was Born. They're coming into Philadelphia. I've done this drive many times, as you could tell, lots of traffic. But there's a skyline here going in to Philly, and then over here we have a shot from where your heartache exists. Another one, a shot of Philadelphia in background. And this example is from After the Party, which was another really good kind of shot music video within the Philadelphia area. Here we have Atlantic City. So it's super small and super quick. You might miss it, but they're in a shop on the Atlantic City boardwalk. These two characters are kind of messing around with the merchandise, all wearing the Atlantic City, sweatpants and t-shirts here. Okay. And so then we have Anna, and Anna is the song basically all about Philadelphia. And these are all shots. The quality is kind of blurry, but that's how the video was, put together. First Unitarian Church is a great music venue in Philly if you ever have the chance to go. North Star Bar used to be, Mummers Museum, and another shot of Philadelphia. Okay, and our last bit here is age, and I really think this quote works nicely here. That when a punk ages, it's not always graceful. And so in a 2017 New York Times review of After the Party, the writer says of the album, Mr. Barnett can't decide whether growing old is a joke or a tragedy. All he knows is that it's left him unsettled. And so I think, as we've all known, a lot of punk research emphasizes the prominence of youth and youth cultures, ideas of age, right? A lot of good scholarship coming from this room on age and punk. That we know that people maintain that punk affiliation well beyond teenage years. So, a lot of this research demonstrates that while growing up means a shifting of priorities, the participants continue to engage in activities later in life. And many of these values are, kind of remain relevant as people get older. I think a good example is that at some point, maybe we have spent our Fridays and Saturdays getting rowdy at local shows. But here we are today on a Friday, and tomorrow on a Saturday, we're talking about punk. So the activities may still be part of that punk, identity, but the activities change. So we may see resentment, longing, disappointment in the way that, age kind of makes those changes. But it doesn't mean that we can't recall these moments fondly and view them as part of that always evolving punk identity. So you've got some more examples. I think Telling Lies is their most popular song, and it opens with Where Are We Gonna Go Now That Our 20s Are Over? The decade taken hostage by my own guilty conscience. America, You're Freaking Me Out. Same. How do I steer my early 30s before I shipwreck before I'm 40? So we see the times kind of changing, and age is still a factor. Okay, so our conclusion is that there's a lot to look at here. Does the Menzingers fit the NEPA effect? Yeah, I'd say so. I made it up. But I think that we can think about how all these factors come together in a when we look at punk, right? When we look at all these things individually, what can they tell us together about the music, people, identity? Um, there's a stubbornness and pride that people have in this part of the world. Philadelphians are very familiar with the phrase. The Philadelphia motto is "No one likes us and we don't care." So I think you have some of that going on here. Having to live in the shadows of New York City, and certainly NEPA is not part of that, conversation when we talk about things like punk. So it's built into the ethos of the region to have that loyalty and pride. And they tell a story that we all have, right? We may not be from NEPA or Philadelphia. Maybe we haven't attended shows at the Stone Pony. But everybody has stories of missing a relationship, some activities from youth, recalling an old music venue, and that's why I think that they found such a following with their music.